Hey everyone, are you ready for a deep dive? Today we're talking finance, and boy, is there a lot to cover.
Yeah, there really is lots going on.
We've got VanEck making moves, inflation's still hanging around like an unwanted house guest, and one REIT is on a wild ride.
And we're going to break it all down in a way that makes sense for you, right? So you can actually use this information.
Exactly, no jargon, just the good stuff. So let's jump right in with VanEck, shall we? They're dropping a cool 30 million, big money, into a brand new venture fund.
30 mil, that's not chump change.
Not at all. And this isn't just any fund. It's focused on the future, the really exciting stuff, fintech, cryptocurrency, AI startups, those industries that are changing the world as we know it.
It's a big deal because traditionally big finance hasn't always been the quickest to embrace these new technologies. They like to stick to what they know.
Right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right.
Exactly. But this move by VanEck, it's like they're saying, hey, we see the potential here, we see the future, and we're all in.
It's a bold move.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's a signal to the whole market, like a flare in the sky.
So what you're saying is everyone's watching them now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And think about the implications for these startups. Getting an investment from a company like VanEck, that's huge for them, its validation, its credibility, and its resources.
It's like a seal of approval from the establishment, right?
Exactly. And for VanEck, it's a chance to be at the forefront of the future, to shape the financial landscape of tomorrow.
It's like they say, the early bird gets the worm.
Or in this case, the early investor might just get the whole nest egg. But hey, we're not giving financial advice here.
Definitely not. But speaking of things that affect our finances, let's talk about inflation.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Unfortunately, it's expected to slow down a bit in September, which is good news, but there's always a but.
There's always a but. The Federal Reserve, they're aiming for that 2% inflation target. But how aggressively are they willing to act to get there? That's the million-dollar question.
And more importantly, what will those actions mean for everyday people like you and me?
Because, let's face it, that's what really matters.
Exactly. What does this mean for my wallet?
Exactly. So if the Fed gets too aggressive, slams on the brakes too hard, it could slow down the economy too much. And that's not good for anyone. Businesses might hold back on hiring, people might cut back on spending, and things could stagnate.
Like that car in front of you that won't go when the light turns green. So frustrating.
The worst. And on the other hand, if they don't do enough, if they let inflation keep simmering, it could stick around longer, eating away at our purchasing power. Every dollar we have buys a little less each day.
It's like watching your ice cream melt before you can even take a bite.
The worst feeling.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balancing act, that's for sure.
It's a tightrope walk, and we're all holding our breath to see how it plays out. But what can we do about it, besides hold our breath, I mean?
Well, for starters, pay attention to what's happening, not just with the big economic indicators, but also with the prices of things you buy regularly. Notice if that carton of eggs costs a little more this week than it did last week.
That's a good point. Knowledge is power, right? The more informed we are, the better equipped we are to make smart decisions for ourselves and our families.
Couldn't agree more.
Speaking of things that impact our wallets, let's talk stocks.
The stock market, always a wild ride.
Tell me about it. Yesterday, the S&P 500, it held steady after a little rally, almost a full percentage point.
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
But I was reading about Jim Cramer, the market guru, and he's saying there's 10 big things we need to keep an eye on.
10 things. That's a lot to keep track of.
It is, and I won't bore you with all the details, but one thing he mentioned that really stuck with me was earnings reports.
Yeah, those are always important. They give us a peek behind the curtain, see how companies are actually doing, not just what they want us to see.
Right, like are they actually making money or are they just blowing smoke?
Exactly. And right now, there's so much uncertainty in the air, Like, are these companies feeling the heat from inflation? Or are they managing to stay cool?
Are they keeping their heads above water?
Exactly. Are they swimming with the sharks, or are they about to be lunch? The answers to those questions, those are going to have a big impact on where the market goes next.
So are we talking bull market or bear market?
Well, that's a million-dollar question, isn't it? Valuations in the U.S. and Australia, they're pretty high by historical standards. Some investors are getting a little nervous. They're starting to sweat a little bit.
Makes sense. Nobody wants to be the last one holding the bag when the music stops.
Right. But on the other hand, there are some pretty strong economic fundamentals underpinning those markets. So it's not an easy call.
So what's an investor to do? Just sit tight and hope for the best?
Not necessarily. This is where diversification comes in, right? You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Spread the risk around a little bit.
Don't bet the whole farm on one hand of poker.
Exactly. And, some international markets are looking pretty attractive right now. You might find some hidden gems, some undervalued opportunities.
Interesting. So you're saying it might be time to look beyond our own borders for some investment potential.
It's always worth considering, right?
Now, let's zoom in from the global market to a more specific story, Whitestone Wheat. They saw their stock price jump up after getting a really nice takeover offer from MCB Real Estate.
Yeah, $15 a share, that's a pretty penny.
Definitely caught my attention. So what's the story there? What's driving this bidding war?
Well, it's all about real estate, right? REITs, those are companies that own and operate properties like shopping centers, apartments, office buildings.
Yeah.
They make money from the rent they collect. And real estate, it's usually a pretty good hedge against inflation.
Because people always need a place to live and work, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So the fact that MCB is willing to shell out so much cash for Whitestone, it tells me they see a lot of value in that company's portfolio, and they're bullish on the future of real estate.
So for those of us who own REITs, this is a good sign.
Right. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about something a little more, shall we say, technical. It's these Form 8.3 filings.
Yes, the nitty-gritty.
We've seen a bunch of these lately with big players like Invesco Ltd. Disclosing their trading activities, buying and selling stocks in other companies.
Right, they're required to disclose those big moves, keeps things transparent.
So why should we care about these filings? They seem kind of, boring.
Oh, they might seem boring at first glance, all those numbers and legal jargon, but trust me, they can be incredibly insightful. It's like getting a peek into the minds of these Wall Street giants, seeing what they're buying, what they're selling, and how much.
So it's like insider information, but legal.
Well, not exactly insider information, but you're on the right track.
It's like we're getting a glimpse at their playbook.
Exactly. And by understanding why they're making certain moves, we can get a better sense of where the market might be heading. It's like having a crystal ball, but instead of a crystal ball, it's a stack of government filings.
It's like they say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, but your brokerage account even closer. Know what's happening with your money.
Now you're speaking my language. So let's do a quick recap of today's deep dive, bring it all together.
That sounds good to me.
We kick things off with VanEck, right? Big company, big money, betting big on the future of finance. Fintech, crypto, AI, all that good stuff. It's a sign that the times, well, they are a-changin'. Even the old guard is starting to take notice.
And speaking of changing, we talked about how inflation is still sticking around like that song you can't get out of your head.
Catchy, but kind of annoying.
Exactly. And the Federal Reserve, they're trying to walk that fine line between, keeping prices in check and not crashing the whole economy.
It's a tough job, no doubt.
Then we jumped into the stock market, which always feels like a bit of a gamble, doesn't it?
Like rolling the dice on your financial future.
U.S. stocks, Australian stocks, they're looking a little pricey these days. So are we headed for a correction, or is this the new normal? Nobody knows for sure.
That's the thing about the market. Always full of surprises. But that's why we talk about diversification, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread the risk. Explore different opportunities. We even talked about how some international markets might be worth a look.
A little bit of global exploration for your portfolio?
Why not? And who could forget about Whitestone REIT? Their stock is on a tear thanks to that juicy takeover offer. Shows that even in these uncertain times, there are still deals to be made, money to be made.
Always opportunities out there for those who know where to look.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, we dug into those Form 8.3 filings. I know, they might sound about as exciting as watching paint dry, but they can actually be quite revealing.
Yeah, I used to think they were just bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo, but now I see them as a potential goldmine of information.
That's the spirit. Remember, knowledge is power.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive, but hey, it's not really goodbye, is it? It's more like, until next time.
Stay curious, my friend.
Stay informed. And keep diving deeper into the world of finance. We'll be here to guide you every step of the way.